Yeah, fair to say. Yeah, we got in late last night, but yeah, all good.
Um, how are they looking for team news for Sunday?
Yeah, I guess first things first. Last night, all good. Obviously, boys fairly tired, but physically no issues from last night's game. And then out of the guys who sort of stayed back, Destiny, we think will be okay. We've obviously got training today and tomorrow, so he's got to get through that. Sunny unlikely. Again, he's pushing hard, but I just don't think the turnaround will be quick enough and for him to be available at this stage. And then that's it. The others are kind of long term.
I remember a few years ago, Son was touch and go, and went on international duty. Given what he's been saying, is it fair to say can rule Son out for international duty? Do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, if he doesn't play for us, and like I said, it's not like he's close, then makes sense. But, again, we always have to be mindful. International duty, national teams take over. Yeah, they're the custodians of their players, but we've given them all their medical information. They understand, and they're understanding, and Sonny knows the situation.
I'm sure you're absolutely delighted for Dom Solanke to make the England squad. In terms of James Maddison, who's had a really good start as well, you former international manager yourself, and he's an emotional guy, and he speaks so well. What have you said, or what will you say to him? Because I'm sure he'll be disappointed.
Yeah, look, I'm sure he's disappointed, but that at the same time he's playing well. So it's not. Sometimes that's all you can do, and these things come along at times. It's not always perfect in your career, and there are situations and circumstances that don't mean you don't always get what you want, but it shouldn't deter or detract from everything else you're doing. So he's playing really well for us. I think he's been outstanding all year. He's making an impact in every game he plays. He's a really important part of our midfield setup, and if he continues to do that, I'm sure he'll get selected again. But you can't just sort of put everything in one basket of just being disappointed because you have missed out. Like I said, that shouldn't have any effect on him and the way he's playing, because he's been brilliant for us.
50 games in charge of Spurs last night, flown by. Where do you see Spurs in 100 games under your management?
Well, many wouldn't have said I'd make 50, mate. Even when I was on about 46. So, look, it's obviously, as managers, there's always a kind of ticking clock against our tenure at all times. So anytime you reach a sort of milestone, it's always, I guess, an indication of people still believe in what you're trying to do. So it has flown by, to be fair. It's obviously 15, 16 months, 50 games, but enjoyed every one of them. And hopefully next 50 are, ones where we can make a real impact.
Hi, Ange.
Hey.
Great way to mark 50 games with Tottenham's best winning run for 3.5 years. How close to the desired level is your team right now?
Well, it's always kind of a shifting sort of measurement for us, or scale, in that every time you go on sort of any consistent run of form, and I think we've been consistent all year. Obviously, the results in the last 5 games have got the rewards for the performance, but that always kind of makes you even more eager to keep pushing on and get better and see what level we can reach. I still think we're a developing side. We're still very much a young side. The squad's still, developing together, which suggests whatever markers we set at the moment, we should be able to exceed. But there's no doubt when you win games, like I said, we have in recent times, that belief and I guess that energy just accelerates, and the key to that is to keep it going. You don't want to let it go. You want to work as hard as we have so far to keep this sort of momentum going.
Looking ahead to Brighton, just wanted to ask you about Fabian Herzler, 31 years old, younger than most people in this room. What do you make of the job he's done at Brighton? How impressive has he been?
Yeah, great. I mean, he's 31. It's crazy, but I think that's about the age I started, albeit at not this level. Really impressive. He when he was coaching St Paul, he coached Jackson Irvine, who I had the Socceroos. He's a great player, but a fantastic person as well. And he actually reached out to us and said, "Fabian's, likes what you're doing. Can he come pay a visit?" He came and spent a day with us last year, and he asked a hell of a lot of questions, and I gave him too many answers, that's for sure. If I hadn't only been Brighton manager, but you could tell he's just a real student of the game. Wanted as much knowledge. He was already sort of a senior manager, and he got them promoted last year, so he was already doing a good job. But he was that. You could tell when somebody's got that sort of curiosity, and I think that's the key for all managers. I think especially young ones is you got to maintain that. It can get sucked out of you at times because you when you get into the battle of, and particularly at this level of dealing with one crisis or another, you can forget that. It's that curiosity to always, find out more information. I think if he maintains that, he'll be an outstanding manager. But he's done well. Look, it's probably a perfect fit for him because I think Brighton are a fantastic club. They're careful about who they put in as manager. There's usually an alignment there, which I wonder sometimes with other clubs whether they even think about that stuff. So he's in a great place.
Do you remember any of the questions he asked you? What was
He
the
asked
best
us a
question?
lot. Yeah, no, I actually palmed him off at one stage because he was asking me too many, so I gave him to the other coaches. But look, he was just inquisitive about everything. Obviously, like I said, he was already a senior manager. He was doing a good job, but the fact that he still wanted to ask, and obviously had observed us, and I'm sure other clubs as well. It wasn't just us, but it made a real impression on everyone.
Last trip to the Amex was one to forget for Tottenham. What did you learn from the defeat that day?
Yeah, it was a curious one because we again, it was one of those periods where we were a bit disrupted in terms of player availability and stuff. But we started the game really poorly, really open, and then by the end of it, it could have ended up 4-4, 5-4. But we didn't handle the occasion well, particularly early in the game, but. It was kind of indicative of our season where there was some good stuff in there that got overshadowed by, stuff that, we really struggled with at times last year just in terms of our consistency of performance. So, so far the away games we've had this year, we've played really well. I mean, Leicester we should have won. Newcastle thought we played really well but didn't win. Obviously, Man U, we played well there. So, we're handling, even last night playing away from home in Europe, I think we're handling those situations better, so we're going to have to on the weekend too. Thanks.
Hi, Ange, how are you?
I'm good, mate.
Dominic Solanke's England call-up. Are you firstly surprised it's taken so long since his last international call-up to be called back into the England squad? And secondly, how much is it vindication of the hard work you and he had put in at the beginning of the season?
Well, I don't know, surprised. I mean, like I said, with Dom, he's had to work awfully hard in his career, and it's a salient point to all young players that the trajectory doesn't always go in sort of a linear fashion where he started at big clubs. He was obviously he was a youth international. He was he obviously made an impact, but just for one reason or another, it didn't get started, but it didn't deter him. He went to Bournemouth and he worked awfully hard and had a year in the Championship. So there was, I think there's reasons why he wasn't selected. Certainly his last, 13, 14 months in terms of his goal output, even before then, especially last year in the Premier League, got him into the frame even for the Euros. He was probably really close to getting selected there, and it's all down to him, mate. I've had him for a month. I've got zero to do with his achievements to get into the England team. It's to do with him, and even the way he's handled his move here. Big club again for him. Obviously big expectations, and unfortunately got injury. But since he's been back from that injury, he's been brilliant for us in all aspects. And credit to him. But more exciting for me is I know there's a hell of a lot more to come.
I can tap into your experience at international level with footballers. Before the last gathering, international break, under 21 level, Unai Emery was a bit critical that Morgan Rogers was playing for the under 21s, questioning what he would learn from that. You've got Archie Gray in the under 21s this time round. You had him last time as well. What do players like Archie learn from playing youth football with their countries?
Yeah, I guess it depends. I think it's kind of, I always think these things that you should kind of treat them on an individual basis because I think, for different footballers at different levels in their career, and depending on sort of their workloads, international football can be a real benefit. I think Archie will benefit a lot from being with the under-21s because you've got to remember with Archie, he's really had 1 year of really senior football, and that was at championship level. He's kind of just breaking into this level now, Premier League level, and I think the more experiences we can give him at this young age, the better he'll be moving forward. But there could be another player who's already got that, by 18, 19, has that experience. He's had 2 or 3 years of senior football, and I can understand maybe under 21 international football, particularly when you're talking about Premier League players and their workloads. You kind of think, is there a benefit? But I really think, for the most part, you treat that on an individual basis. I'm always an advocate for international football because I've seen how much it helps young players develop. But again, you've always got to sort of measure that against kind of where they're at in their club situation.
And finally, 4 teenagers started for you last night. I know you didn't like the Ange.
Don't even say it, mate. Don't even say it.
I'm going to go with Postecoglou's prodigies.
You even struggle to say it, to be fair. So I don't think it's rolled off the tongue.
In all seriousness, you are at least someone that puts trust in young players. And for a senior manager, other clubs, sometimes that doesn't happen. Why are you so, or how does that trust come about?
Well, I mean, I think it's, I think most managers would like, if they've got talented youngsters, to use them. But I just think for us, where we are in terms of as a club, I think it's really important for what we're trying to build. Like I said, I've always felt that clubs that have sustainable success have a real strong underpinning of young players who grow with the team. So that invariably over a course of time, players move on, and when you're looking for replacements, they're already here. And whether that's guys who are, club trained, like particularly say Mikey, Will's had a couple of years with us, or we're bringing them in. I think I said last night, the ones we bring in, like we worked really hard to get Archie and Lucas to our club. And part of that was me saying, look, you come to our club, we'll develop you and you will play, you'll get an opportunity. Now, it's easy for me to say that, get them to sign a contract, and then, 3 months later they haven't played at all. And then, come next window, I go again and speak to the next 18-year-old, and he turns around and says, well, actually, you know what, the evidence doesn't back up what you're saying. So I have that responsibility. But at the same time, they've earned it, and it's an easier decision for me to make when I see them every day and I say, well, you know what, I have no fear about throwing them out there in terms of they're ready for it and they want to contribute. So, it's always a balancing act. And for a club like ours, I understand how important it is, particularly for club-trained players like Mikey, to make sure we keep that pathway open for him.
Hi, Ange. Just wanted to follow up on Archie Gray. How was he so comfortable playing in so many different positions at such a young age?
Well, he's got no choice because I'm putting him there, and that's part of kind of his development. But look, he's obviously, it probably helps. He comes from a footballing family. He's probably been exposed to football from the moment he was born. So I think he understands the game, and he understands. He takes information really well. He's trading. He's constantly looking for more and more information, which helps. And then he's just got a great temperament. He seems to take things in his stride and not let it affect him. I said last night, played him in 2 different positions. Probably both aren't the least preferred for him. He's played sort of right fullback and midfield, but I had him at left centre back and left back last night. So and I thought he did brilliantly again. So, but I'm not going to just put him at different positions. It's at the moment we're using him where we need him, and I think hopefully that gives him confidence in that's how much I trust him. But eventually, we'll settle him into an area. But him playing at the moment, he's played an FA Cup, Carabao Cup game away. He's played 2 European games. He's had exposure in the Premier League already in the sort of first 10 games of his Tottenham career. I think it's great for us.
You spoke about Hurtsela visiting the training ground and picking your brains, etc. Do you find it quite beneficial as well when these coaches speak to you because you get to share ideas with them?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had quite a number come through. I've always been open to it. I just don't think there's any real secrets in football. I think, for the most part, everything you need to know is kind of out there. But I enjoy it. I think it's good for my staff to be exposed to it as well, because again, football can become fairly insular. We all talk about trying to block the outside noise, so whatever noise you do get in becomes really important. So I think having, we've had guys from, all sorts of football clubs, different nationalities from different sports come in and spend a day with us, and I always enjoy it, and I think it works both ways.
I'll finish this section with George, please.
Angelo, when the managers often talk about a rebuild, they sort of talk about suffering and going through a bit of pain. And I just wondered, the way you finished last season compared to the way you started this season, do you think you're almost possibly through that pain now and the good times are coming?
What's the date? I reckon it was about 14 days ago that didn't feel like that. It felt like there was still a lot of suffering, it seemed. It's just the way of the football world that it's a very, very fine line to what people's perception of how you're going is, and that's why you can't let that be your guide. You just can't, not in today's world. It doesn't mean you ignore everything, because, there's some probably astute observations as to how we're going, and you need to address that. Some of that's around sort of whatever measurements we use to map our progress, or what some people see is important to us. But ultimately, you've got to rely on something else other than where the spotlight is at the moment. And it didn't feel like that long ago that people were questioning everything I was doing, and nothing's changed 14 days later, except for the results. But for me, even before that, I could see that the measurements we're looking for, we started the season well. There was some real growth in us. But it's not going to be a smooth road. We're not at that stage of being a team where things are just going to sort of, click all the time. We're still going to go through some, like you said, suffering or challenges. But that's important. You need to do that. Otherwise, you're never going to know how you're going to handle it. And I think so far we've handled it well.
One player who seems to be flourishing is Dejan Kulusevski. Can you just talk about how his sort of role has evolved in the team and the way you're playing him, and just basically what's led to his good run of form this season?
Yeah, Decky's been brilliant, like out of this world in many respects in terms of just what he's able to do in that sort of central role. Obviously we used him more as a wide player last year, but again, that's because we didn't have too many options out there, and it was the area he was most comfortable in. But when we started using him inside, I felt he felt that it kind of unshackled him a little bit, and he's got an unbelievable capacity to run, with and without the ball. His physical numbers are ridiculous. And he has the quality to hurt teams with that. So, I think at times maybe playing out wide, he felt a bit suppressed, because especially in our system, there's a lot of times where you've got to hold your position and just do the thing for the team but not be involved. And he's the kind of player who wants to be involved. So, obviously when, we brought a couple of wide players in this year, I really sort of thought, let's go with him inside. Obviously, pre-season played him as a 9 because we didn't have a 9, and even there he made an impact. And the beauty of Decky is I think he's sort of just getting started. He's really, I think he enjoys the role. I think he can make a massive impact, and it just adds a different dimension to us because there isn't many players like him.
And I know you joked about Fabian Herzler asking too many questions, but in all seriousness, if you knew he was going to be a Premier League manager this season, would you have still invited him into the training ground last season?
Yes, mate, I would. I think there's nothing wrong with being a nice person. Like I said, it's, if somebody comes and knocks on your door and wants a cup of tea, and, you kind of, as a kindred spirit, you let him in your house, mate. It's all right. He's not going to take the furniture or steal the cutlery. You kind of trust that. So, yes, I would have let him in, mate. No problem.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.
I'll be around on Monday then.